Hello and welcome to the Candlelight Podcast, where I, Mohamed Abdalla, talk about different topics, including some of my favorites, which are movies, martial arts, and philosophy. Guys, I thought of something new I should add to the podcast, which is to include in every week's episode a new quote. Basically, get a quote that I've read somewhere or listened to throughout the week and use it on this podcast and ponder on it, basically. Here we go with the basically again. Oh boy, do I love that word. Anyway, I'd like to. I was about to say basically. I just stopped myself. That's why I paused. I'd like to have a quote that kind of inspires me, that kind of gives me some perspective, introspection, and really use it on every single weekly podcast, every single episode. So I guess this week's quote is "Ain't nothing to do it." Oh wait, no, I just messed it up. Again. This week's quote is "Ain't nothing to it but to do it." And I've heard this quote on a podcast I've listened to, I believe, last week, where the UFC MMA fighter, Dustin Poirier, who's actually fighting tomorrow from when this podcast is going to upload. He's fighting another elite top contender in his lightweight division. You might have heard of him if you've heard of MMA. His name is what was his name? Oh yeah, Conor McGregor, one of the biggest stars the sport has ever seen. A guy that I don't particularly like. He's not really the nicest guy. Not really the most lovable, but he's fighting. He's a top contender. He's a great fighter, and he's fighting Dustin Poirier, who quoted this line, "Ain't nothing to it but to do it," on a podcast I've listened to him, be a guest in. This podcast was, I believe, Theo Vaughn's podcast. If you've heard of that guy, they're both from Louisiana. They're both Louisiana, as in the state in the USA, and they're both friends. So he got onto his podcast to discuss some things about life and upcoming fights and his future in the MMA world, in this sport. And he ended the podcast with this quote. And I was like, I've never heard of this before. I wonder where it comes from. And apparently it comes from, it's attributed to a country singer, an American country singer named Cody Johnson. And I really just liked the quote, "Ain't nothing to it but to do it." Which is really so simple and so true, because this podcast, for example, the one that I just started last week was the very first episode. This week is the second. I really didn't want this podcast to feel like a chore, so I just compiled some thoughts and interesting things that I've read, listened to, watched, or experienced, so that I can talk about them on the podcast. And so I do have notes in front of me right now, but they're simply there as referential talking points. They're not there for as a script. It's just talking points that I found interesting, and this quote was at the top. Basically, I'd like to start every podcast with a quote that interested me, and I like to read a lot. Not necessarily read, more like listen to authors talk a lot. I really transitioned from reading into listening to podcasts and stuff like that. So, and there was a lot of quotes being thrown around, and this one appealed to me. And I hope I'd start every week's podcast with a quote, just to help us get going and maybe try to explore and ponder and wonder and contemplate on what this quote can apply to, how we can benefit from it. Because at the end of the day, this podcast is about benefiting me and you. And I really hope we come out as better people from the other side of it. Because keep in mind, this is as much I want to say therapy. This is as much as a motivator and inspiration and basically talking to for me as it is for anyone that's listening. I really hope you guys listen to me. I really hope you guys are benefiting from my rants and rambles, as I'm rambling right now, and just get something beneficial out of it. I'll keep hammering that point down until I'm beating a dead horse. I don't care. Oh, by the way, that's an expression, beating a dead horse. I'm not really actually beating a dead horse. I'm just like saying something so repetitively that it's like, okay, we got it, that kind of thing. So and by the way, this quote really ain't nothing to it but to do it. it really just fits well for me in this podcast, like I said just now earlier, because I have 30 minutes to upload every week. And 30 minutes might look overwhelming when I haven't started yet, but the important thing is that I just start. I just start and then go on from there. Just read my opening line, the one I'll read every single week, and from there on, have the notes in front of you and just go with the flow. Just think, talk, rant, and ponder on stuff until you get the entire 30 minutes, and hopefully there's something beneficial from it. And actually, there was this Japanese method of starting something. Japanese method of just starting something, or actually no, doing something every day. Doing something every day for just 1 minute. Just do it for 1 minute every single day, just to have some sort of structure in your daily life. Something that, of course, you have work, but no, you need to have something other than work or a job to basically have your life in some sort of order, have some structure. And this method is called Kaizen. And it's the 1 minute principle of doing something every day for basically just 1 single minute. Whatever it is, whether it's push-ups or reading or whatever it might be, just do it for a single minute every day. At the same time as well. So if you're doing it at 12 noon, do it at 12 noon for a minute every day. Something that's very simple. It could be anything. Something you just want to improve upon. Something you just like to do. It's a hobby. Whatever it is, do it for a single minute every single day. And it will benefit you. It's very effortless. It's very effortless. But it still will benefit you over the coming weeks. It will benefit you over time. Oh, there's another Japanese thing that I've read about that I really like to share, actually. It's called, what is it? Kint. Well, let me just kind of open the browser here and just type it in. Yeah, okay. So, kintsugi. It's called kintsugi. And this is really an interesting idea, an interesting concept that the Japanese people have as an art. What this word kintsugi refers to, from what I've read, is that it is a Japanese art based on repairing pottery. Just repairing pottery in a very simple and really interesting way. Let me explain. So, instead of gluing broken pieces of pottery together or using any sort of simple, efficient, practical method, they actually use a sort of lacquer powdered with gold, so that when you apply it on the broken pieces and stick it together, it produces this beautiful pattern. Well, not really a pattern, it's just the brokenness of the pottery, its history of breaking is very evident in looking at it, because the cracks are lined with gold. And you can see it, and you know that this pottery is broken. However, after repairing the broken thing, it becomes much more beautiful, because now it's lined with gold. And this really, keep in mind, guys, I really don't want to jump really into the cheesiness and the cliche of things, but we're gonna get to the edge of it, at least. So, the idea here is basically the thing has history, and what broke it before has broken it, indeed. But the way it was repaired made it even more beautiful. So this really can apply to things like ourselves, our personal lives, our health, our physical health, our mental health, our spiritual health, our relationships, anything that you can think of, it may apply to, it can. So you can think of it as, yes, I've been through this bad thing, or this bad thing happened to me, or I've done this bad thing, but I want to move past it. I want to repair what I myself have broken, or someone has, or something that has broken me. I just want to get through it, and in the process of getting through it, you become more beautiful. And after you have gone through it, you are more beautiful than you started with, because now you have this history that you've overcome this difficult thing or this bad thing. And that just raises you as a person, makes you better. So I really, really like this this Japanese concept of kintsugi, of repairing pottery, something as simple as that, and the kaizen method of just doing something for a minute every single day at the same time, just to improve upon it. Whatever it is, even if it's punching a punching bag, just to get better with punching, to tap into the martial arts aspect of things. Speaking of martial arts, MMA, Max Holloway, the former featherweight champion in the UFC, put on one of the best performances I've ever seen from an MMA fighter. One of the most beautiful, just clinical, spectacular performances I've ever seen. It was such a good display of skill. By the way, I'm referring to his fight with Calvin Kattar last week, where they fought for 5 rounds. They were the main event, and Max just came out off of 2 losses against the current featherweight champ, Alexander Volkanovski. Volkanovski is a very elite fighter. So is Max. They're both 2 of the best featherweights to have ever done it, and Alexander beat Max the first time they fought. Clearly, he outpointed him. He outskilled him. However, they had a rematch because Max was such a long-reigning champion. They had a rematch where Max really brought it to him and edged out what I thought was what seems to be a victory. However, the judges still gave the fight to Alex, even though Max was the better fighter that night. So a lot of people think this fight was a robbery, and Alex remained champion, and now Max has to fight a contender instead of has to fight a top contender as a top contender himself, no longer being champion, which sucks. But man, the judges in MMA are a problem. So anyway, Max fought this top contender, Calvin, and wow, Max just showed us that there's a difference between being a contender, a top contender, and an elite champion level fighter. That's what Max is. And the display, the performance he showed us last week just was proof of the pudding. Max is a great fighter. The fight was 5 5-minute rounds. And Max beat him up so badly. So bad. The guy was bleeding by the second round. And at the end of the fight, the last 2 minutes of the fight, Max just went into the zone and just started talking smack. Not really trash talking smack, just hyping himself up, not putting his opponent down. He was saying that, well, kind of is, because, if you're hyping yourself up, especially what he said, he was saying, I'm the best boxer in the UFC, as he's fighting the guy, and as the guy is trying to punch him, Max was looking at the commentary team outside the cage and smack talking, bringing himself up as he's dodging a flurry of punches. It was one of the most spectacular sport moments I've ever seen. It's so amazing. It was just mind-blowing, had me grabbing my head, jumping out of my seat. Wow. What a display, what a performance. Because on the lead-up, they said this guy, Calvin, had elite-level boxing. He could outbox some of the best fighters on the planet. And then Max just came in there and put on a striking clinic. He destroyed him with boxing. And he exclaimed, rightfully so, that he's the best boxer in the UFC. Man, wow. One of the greatest fighters to have ever done it. Definitely in my top 15. Not sure if he makes my top 10, though. I'm not sure about that, because his last 2 fights with Alex really showed that there was a very equal stalemate to the both of them. So anyway, speaking of the UFC, Khabib Nurmagomedov, as much as he's saying he's retired, Dana White, the president of the UFC, is not buying it. He's saying, no, he was emotional that night. He doesn't mean it. Even though Khabib has been repeating for months now that he's done. He's retired. He's not coming back. Dana's just not having it. He's like, no, he's coming back. I'm going to convince him to come back to fight Conor. And it's like, Conor's fighting tomorrow, from when this podcast is coming up. And he may lose. But Dana's just banking on Conor winning. Like, he's really hoping that Conor will win, which is kind of like, what are you kind of... This is not really setting a good precedent between you and the other fighter, Dustin. What if Dustin wins and that ruins your entire plan? And Dustin knows that you've been rooting for Conor, and you're the UFC president. You're supposed to seem non-partial. But it's all about the money with Dana. That's all he cares about. And Conor makes him money. And Khabib makes him money as well. That's why he wants that rematch to happen between Conor and Khabib, even though Khabib absolutely decimated Conor the first time and basically beat him up for 4 rounds and then choked him out. What more of a dominating performance do you want? But Dana's just really... He doesn't want to lose the cash cow that Khabib is, and he wants him to fight Conor again in the hopes that Conor would win, and he'd set up even a bigger match, which is the trilogy between Khabib and Conor. But hopefully that's not going to happen because Khabib beat him up and retired. He had nothing more to prove. Conor has a lot to prove, however. He needs to prove he's the top lightweight right now, and he needs to fight Khabib again to prove that he's the best lightweight and possibly the best fighter of all time. But no, it's a bit of a stretch. Conor's not even the top 10 greatest fighters of all time, but we'll see what happens. In the words of Dana White himself, we'll see how this thing plays out. So that's what's going on this week with fights. Last week, Max put on an absolute clinic. This week, Dustin Poirier is fighting Conor McGregor to see who's the best lightweight. Well, not really the best lightweight, but who's the top contender for the title of lightweight, because Khabib is still the champion, but he's gonna vacate if there is another champion that basically deserves the title. The thing is, Dana wouldn't strip Khabib. He's supposed to strip Khabib because Khabib is retired. But Dana's not doing it. The UFC president is just like, no, he's coming back. And Khabib's like, I'm retired. And so he kind of fell under some criticism. It's like, if you're retired, why don't you just vacate the belt yourself? They don't need to strip you. And Khabib jokingly replied, let me have the belt for a few days. It's just for now, Like, why are you rushing into stripping me of the belt? Just let me enjoy it for a few days. And jokingly, though. So, if it comes time to strip Khabib or for him to vacate, he will do so. He will not hold up the division. He's more honorable than to do that. And they're going to figure out who's the best fighter after him in lightweight. So any new lightweight champion is basically going to be a paper champion. He never beat Khabib. He never beat the real champion. He's just going to pick up the pieces from the destruction that Khabib absolutely put on the lightweight division. He destroyed every single person. Not every single person. He destroyed everyone that's the best fighters there. He destroyed the best fighters there, and he deserves to go out on top. Let him retire in his prime, in the best shape he's ever looked in. Let him retire on the top of the food chain. Pound for pound, best fighter in the world, the baddest man on the planet. Truly the best man on the planet. So that's what's going on in the MMA world right now, and it's really, really interesting to see how all of this just ends up playing out. Oh, by the way, guys, so earlier I was talking about how I basically compiled some thoughts on interesting things, the things I found interesting, fascinating, that I watched, read, or experienced, or listened to. Speaking of things I experienced, I went to Horfacon this weekend, and I really enjoyed it. Went out with my brother, my cousins, and a few friends, and just had a good time. We went to this very secluded beach, like a very small beach between a mountain and a farm, and it was a really cool time that we had. We got to enjoy the beach, go kayaking, and really just have the full experience, except for the fact that it's winter and it's not really the most ideal time to go to the beach, but it still is we still had a good time. It was still hot enough for us to enjoy the water, to enjoy the sand, and it was really a good time. And I've experienced some cool things that I haven't really done before much. For example, I went crab hunting actually. Just like kind of walked around the beach, walked in the water, dove to find crabs, different kinds of crabs, baby crabs that we Emiratis call shanyub, which is a very small baby crab that hides in a shell. They find a seashell and they just hide in it. It's really cute. I grabbed a bunch of those, and I found a few like full-on crabs that are, size of a slider, a slider burger, and kind of walk around and basically, just like are there. They like to hide in the sand a lot, these guys, though. So the crabs in general. So it's really kind of difficult to find sometimes, but I still managed to find a bunch of them. By the way, so the small crab we call shanyub, the normal crab, the normal size crab we call gabgoob. So there's some Emirati lingo for you guys. And for Emiratis, I actually found something that, for Emiratis will understand this word, I actually found something that I've never ever seen in a beach before. I saw a yaryur. Emiratis already know what this is. But, so in English, a yaryur is actually a shark. I actually saw a shark in the beach in the UAE, something I've never expected to see. So check this out. When we went kayaking, we went like, about 100 meters away from the beach, just took enjoyed it. Maybe not that far, maybe more like 80 meters. And I was looking down and I saw a tail of what I thought to be a shark move. I was like, I think I just saw some kind of lemon shark, or, a shark that's colored, that has the sand color to it. So I was like, I think I saw one. My brother, who was sitting in the kayak with me, was like, probably not. Probably saw something else. But I was like, I'm pretty sure, like 90% sure that I saw a shark. But I wasn't able to basically confirm that because I just saw the tail, and it was a 2-second sight. I didn't see much of it. So when we got back the same day, I was just walking on the water in the beach. Water was about knee high, and I saw the same shark chasing a fish. It was just like chasing fish right next to me, about like 10 feet away from me. I could see it clear as day. It was an angel shark chasing a fish that was next to a school of fish. So my jaw just dropped. I've never seen a shark so close to the beach. I've never seen a shark next to me in the same water as me. So I just went to my group of friends and brothers, my brother and cousins, just like stood over them as they were sitting down in the tent that we set up. And I was like, guys, please pull up a picture on Google of an angel shark. So they pull it up, and I was like, that's the shark that I just saw. And they're like, what? You saw a shark? I was like, yep. And that's the shark that I just saw. And by the way, if you guys are kind of impressed, should I say, that I knew the name of the shark just by looking at it, sharks are my favorite animal, by the way. I love sharks. There are over 400 kinds of sharks, and I know a lot of them. So just by looking at it, I was able to tell that it's an angel shark. It was so cute. Oh, by the way, I didn't mention, it was an adolescent shark. It was very small. It was not longer than a foot and a half. It was like a foot and a half, like half a meter, basically, of a shark. It wasn't that big. It was really small. And that's why I didn't kind of panic, because, that's one of the reasons I didn't panic, because sharks generally don't attack people, especially not small sharks like that. Sharks generally don't attack people, by the way. I've read a lot about sharks. I've researched a lot about them. They were my childhood obsession for some reason. I just loved sharks. They were such beautiful, beautiful creatures for me. And sharks really aren't as dangerous as we think that they might be. It's It's even the great white shark, my absolute favorite of all the sharks, my favorite animal, the great white shark. It's not that dangerous. It is dangerous if you basically go and act crazy and spill blood around it, and then it might you know you might provoke it, so it might provoke you back by maybe grabbing a bite out of you. So it's you can actually just swim with those things. It's really not that dangerous. I'm not telling anybody to go do that. I'm not responsible for anyone who tries to do that and hurts themselves in some way, and just throwing that out there. Sharks are kind of docile somewhat. Yes, they go crazy, they're ferocious, they eat, they're killing machines, but that's really reserved for the animals that they do eat. Humans are not on the menu for sharks. They don't even like the taste of humans. They don't really see us as a food source. They're like, what is that thing? I've never seen anything like that in the water. That's not a fish. That's not a seal. What is that thing? It's wearing black. It may be a seal, actually. Maybe a different kind of seal. Let me just go taste it. Maybe it tastes good. And that's why sharks attack, because they mistake us for other animals that they do eat. So just don't. So when let's say that you are next to a shark, you happen to find yourself next to a shark. Just be yourself. Don't really freak out too much. Don't just make sure that it looks at you looking at it. That way it recognizes that you're a predator as well. You're a different, independent, strong animal that's there in the ocean with it, and it will really not mess with you much. It won't really provoke you. It'd just be like, what's up, fellow sea creature? And just go on their way. Oh, more like fellow sea predator, because they eat sea creatures. They don't really mess with predators much. So really just make yourself look like you're not a tasty meal, if that makes sense. Just look at it, let it look at you. But by the way, this is one of those things that I'm saying just by out of the stuff that I read. It's kind of like me telling you, if you see a bear in the wild, just make sure it looks at you, show confidence, actually take a step toward the bear. It kind of shows a level of being strong, being fearless, and the bear might not no. Yeah, bears will attack you. But by the way, that's another thing. From what I've read, I'm not sure if this will even work, but bears. So just follow this phrase. If the bear is brown, lay down. If the bear is black, fight back. If the bear is white, good night. That's the rule of thumb when it comes to bears. So if it's brown, just lay down. Make sure you seem as you're not a threat, so it just leaves you alone, because most of the times it's just territorial. It's scared that you might do something, so it does something first. So just lay down in the fetal position. Protect your neck. Protect your face. Make sure if it mauls you, it mauls something you're wearing on your back, like a backpack or something, and stays away from the vital organs. If it's a black bear, just stay still and do nothing. But at the same time, you could fight back by just screaming. Not actually trying to physically hurt it, just scream back at it. Make sure you look scary in front of it. That's all. That's what I've heard. I'm not sure if that's what I've heard to be true, but I'm not sure if it's really true. I've never tried it myself. And if it's a polar bear, well, good luck with that. That's what I've heard. Same goes with sharks. They're not really that dangerous. The great white is supposed to be the most dangerous. Then you've got the bull sharks and tiger sharks and all the others. But make sure that you basically just don't go near them. But if you're a crazy person who likes to do crazy things, sometimes like me, like skydiving and hopefully one day snorkeling with sharks, just be careful. Don't. And by the way, again, I'm not responsible for anyone's. If anyone gets hurt in any way by doing something that I'm mentioning right now. So, we've reached the 30-minute mark. Okay. Oh, this was actually a much faster podcast than last week's. Last week's I was stumbling and struggling to find my footing and see how I can make the 30 minutes. But now I just took the first step, and it was smooth sailing from there. But I guess having notes in front of me this week was much more helpful as well. That's the podcast for this week. And yeah, actually, this kind of circles back to the thing I said in the beginning. Ain't nothing to it but to do it. So I just did it, took the first step, and man, this was a much better episode, I hope, from last week's. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you come back for more. And once again, ain't nothing to it but to do it. See you guys in the next one. Peace.